So Danielle wants to know, what can progressives do collectively to bring awareness to and rein in the rolling back of free speech and suppression of non-corporate media? This also includes free and open internet.
So
Good
we
question.
all need to be totally unafraid to blast our congresspersons and our senators' phone lines about net neutrality for sure. That's a huge one. We need a neutral net. It's free speech in the digital age, right? And to pretend that free speech only applies to when you go to, say, a college campus and you stand in the middle of it and start yelling whatever message you want, to say that's the only stage for free speech, that's to completely miss the point of free speech altogether. But in the modern era, in the 21st century, where everyone has the internet in a rectangle, the size of their palms,
Mhm.
this is a new forum for free speech, and it must be protected at all costs. So progressives, one of the best things we can do is don't be afraid to call out your senators and your congresspersons. A couple years ago, I actually had an alarm set regularly on my phone with my representative, now my opponent, his number in my phone, and I would call at the same time and I'd say, hey, fight for net neutrality. Hey, fight for net neutrality. Don't be afraid to send emails. Let them know that you're there and you see them and you're watching them. Because if you show up at their town halls and you get on that mic and you say, hey, what are you doing to preserve net neutrality? What are you doing to preserve our free speech in the modern era? These are questions that you can throw at them when they're right in front of you and demand answers for. That's what they're supposed to be there for. That's what town halls are supposed to be. They're supposed to be moments where your representatives can come and talk to you about what they're doing, what they're fighting, how they're fighting it, and hear from you about what's important to you. And
Mhm.
showing up is a huge thing. Showing up to these town halls, showing up when they do video town halls, showing up together to protests, showing up to work with organizations that are really getting the ball rolling on these things, and making sure that we're building coalitions as progressives. So it's something I don't think we do enough in the progressive community. Everyone has different organizations that they work with, but we're more powerful if we take all of those organizations and we build them into a collective coalition around an issue. And things like free speech and net neutrality are two of the biggest ways we can possibly form a coalition. And we're also going to get support from independent media, from independent journalists. And in some cases, we'll get friendliness from mainstream media too, whose journalists are also being attacked, because that's something that's huge right now. Is Donald Trump is constantly antagonizing journalists and saying horrible things about them and trying to disregard the freedom of the press, and it's ridiculous. But
Mhm.
forming these coalitions, we can build up more of these relationships. We can build up more of our power to protect free speech together. So we are a lot stronger when we build these coalitions and when we come together around an issue, and we don't stop until we've fought and won for that issue. We can't just keep letting things go to the back burner when the next big thing comes up. We have to keep pushing and keep focused.
Mhm. The sad part about the corporate media is they are so broken beyond repair
Oh
that at times they prove Trump right, which is
yeah.
disgusting beyond comprehension. It's like how terrible do you have to be to and of course everything Donald Trump says, he's not saying it because they're corrupt organizations. He's saying it because they're not nice to him. It's like he's saying
Yeah.
everything for the wrong reasons. But it's like, how
Oh yeah.
broken do you have to be to actually prove this guy right every now
And
and
I mean,
again?
it's really sad too, because what frustrates me the most about corporate media is everything is an 11 on the crisis scale at all times. Every tweet is an 11. Every distraction is a panic moment, and they don't actually focus on the real issues. And that's
No
actually
kidding.
why I love working with independent media. It's why I like working with grassroots journalism, because I come on here and they're like, "What do you think about Trump's latest tweet?" They never ask me that. They're always like, "What's your stance on helping rural farmers? What's your stance on the tariffs that are going on? What's your stance on factory workers?" It's stuff that matters, and grassroots journalists and independent journalists, they know that and they focus on that. So the corporate media drives me nuts because they don't actually focus on issues. They focus on one ridiculous distraction crisis after another, and people are tired of it. They want to hear something tangible and substantial. That's why we're seeing expanded viewership into independent media. That's why more people are doing it. More people are trying to go into independent journalism. It's important. It's important to talk about facts and real facts and to talk about, candidates that actually want to discuss platforms and policies, and to talk to solutions to these issues, not just harp on about how the fact that they are issues. We need solutions. We already know what our problems are. We don't need to hear about what our problems are every day. We need to hear about how we're going to fix them. And corporate media it refuses to focus on solutions based policymaking, and it's frustrating.
Sure. Well, let me ask you this actually, and then we got a lot of viewer questions, so I want to get back to it. But before we leave the topic, you're doing a Fox News spot later. Has MSNBC or CNN shown you any love?
Heck no.
I mean, I entertain this idea, and I do say this to people, and I think that all cable news is absolutely despicable. They are failing miserably. I go as far as to say what they're doing should not be legal because they're not actually news organizations. Yeah. They have the right to publish whatever they want, but they should have to disclose who owns them.
Yes.
And they should have to disclose the fact that they are, in fact, PR agencies. They're not news organizations. They're just not. They're definitionally not.
There was some, I can't remember exactly what the context was, but I remember that Fox News eventually said that, oh, they don't have to do this kind of unbiased journalism because they're a media outlet. They're not a news outlet. And that sticks so well in my head because you know what? I don't agree with Fox News, but at least they own it, right?
Yeah, well, that's the most honest they've ever been right there.
Yeah, I know, right?
They've ever been. But here's my thing. I've made this argument, and a lot of people push back against me for this, but I really do stand by it. I think that MSNBC is the most irresponsible. Right now, MSNBC is the most irresponsible of all of them, and they are the one hurting progressives the most because you have to ask yourself, what's worse? The school bully that you know wants to beat you up, or the person that says they're your friend but stabs you in the back?
Oh,
I would say the person that says they're your friend and stabs you in the back, and that's what MSNBC is. CNN is just the neutral kid standing in the corner doing nothing.
No
Fox News is the bully. MSNBC is the one that says they're your friend.
I mean, the thing that
I would say that's the worst.
Oh, yeah. And the thing that comes to mind for me is everyone says the opposite of love is not hate, it's apathy. And that it makes me think of MSNBC all the time. And then just their focus and the things that they do multiple week-long news reports on for 8 hours a day. Just, it doesn't affect people. It doesn't talk about real policy. It doesn't talk about anything tangible. It's kind of just filler white noise, and it doesn't contribute anything. And they ignore progressives or disparage progressives. And I think that that's just kind of sad.
Well, they pretended to not know who Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was, but for some reason, their executives gave Joe Crowley a bunch of money at the last minute.
Yeah, and they had no idea who she was.
They had no idea who she was. Cool. They just randomly happened to give him a bunch of money. I'm sure it had nothing to do with them being scared he might lose.
No, of course not.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your news